Hello, travelers. This is Paula Schmidt, and welcome to my Theater of the Mind, Evening's Kingdom. Today's guest is my very dear friend, Baker Manning of Below Deck fame. She is also a diva dance extraordinaire and author of the Yacht Job Handbook. In our conversation, we cover so much ground. How mourning the loss of her father led her into a life of adventure and world travel, and thrill-seeking became soul-seeking. Plant medicine, music as medicine, and how Baker unlocked her greatest superpower, joy. Baker, welcome to Evening's Kingdom.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Over the years, something you and I have always talked about is freedom. You are one of the most free-spirited, open-hearted, adventurous, entrepreneurial people I've ever met. You've described your childhood and adolescence as pretty normal, with the normal expectations without much focus beyond the next party. But that all changed when you lost your father. You were very close, and he primarily raised you. You were 20 years old. If you feel comfortable, can you talk about what happened next?
After my dad died, it kind of changed everything for me. And for the first time, I actually did start thinking about the future. And I realized that I had a lot more options than I had thought before. Because, as you mentioned, my dad primarily raised me. Whenever I was really young, he and my mom got a divorce, and he, from then on, had full custody. He supported us, put us through school, and my mom has always been a big part of my life, but my dad was the one calling the shots. He was the boss. I reported back to him whether anything was good or bad. It was like I had to report back to my dad. And I was on a path that was laid out for me that I was perfectly content to be on. Going to school, having a great time doing that, and I figured after school I would just get some kind of job, hopefully make a lot of money, do the family thing, and I really didn't give it much thought, and I wasn't thinking outside the box. But when my dad died, I realized that I was in charge, which was a little terrifying, but also very exhilarating because I suddenly had a bajillion, quadrillion different paths I could take if I wanted, because there's nobody to tell me that I couldn't. And so, yeah, in a strange way, when he died, I gained a lot of freedom to make my own decisions. I also gained a lot of emotional baggage, which I would take with me throughout my travels. But I did start to really consider what I wanted to do, and started to think outside the box. And I had already at that time gotten really into traveling. I guess I caught the travel bug, as they say. So I started to kind of map out some things I wanted to do. Me and my roommate, my best friend Abby at the time, she and I had this great plan, a 3-year plan. When we graduated, we wanted to, as I said, find the best post-up spots. So I wanted to go to a bunch of different places that I heard were awesome and live there for, our plan was 6 months each. And I wanted them all to be very different. So we wanted to do something in the mountains, something in the islands, something, in a third world country or whatever, and just experience as many different things as I could. And then I was going to hopefully find the perfect place to live for, quote unquote, the rest of my life. And the funny thing is, Charleston was not on that list. I was like, get me out of here. And here I am. But yeah, so I stuck with the plan in a different kind of way. But yeah, Abby bailed on me, unfortunately. But I was already, committed to the first leg of the new plan, which was moving to Colorado, because I had gone on a snowboarding trip and didn't quite learn how to snowboard, but had like a little taste of it. And I was like, I've got to go back and do this. And I've just loved Colorado for so many reasons. And so after college, pretty much the day after I was done with my final exam, I loaded up my 4Runner and I drove out to Colorado, and I planned to return to Charleston in 4 months. I told everybody, I'm just going for the season. I'll be back for the summer. I subleased my room temporarily, but in the end, I didn't come back for like years.
And you were 21 at this point.
At this point, I was 21. Yes. Yeah. So my dad died, I was 20. I had some time to think about things. And then by the time I was 21 and I was finished with school, that's when I moved out to Colorado, and that began my 10-year hiatus, or my little thrill-seeking turned soul-seeking journey. And from there, I did Colorado for about a year, Breckenridge, learned how to snowboard, and it was awesome. and just every adventure then kind of brought me to the next one. I didn't have much of a, itinerary or plan after that, but went to Colorado, made friends with Aaron Hodges. Hello, Aaron, you're awesome. And we decided we wanted to move to Argentina, based on the fact that we heard that was the Spanish-speaking country in South America with the hottest men. So that was our sole decision-making process. So went there and got my English as a second language teaching English as a second language certification. So went there, taught English, learned Spanish, and I was there for about 8 months. So there's a whole lot of other things going on down there, and it was awesome. And from there, I moved to Lake Tahoe, California. I was an aspiring fitness instructor, but then I also got a summer job working on a boat that was a little paddle boat, restaurant, bar. Met a captain who introduced me to the yachting world. So after one conversation with him, I had a new ambition of getting a job on a yacht and eventually made that happen. Moved down to Florida, got my, STCW. It's just this little certification. Got a job on a yacht. I did that for about a year and a half. And then I decided it was time to move back to Charleston. I thought I was going to stay put, but that all changed after a dog bite incident. Because I moved back to Charleston, I started to teach Zumba classes and was a dance teacher briefly. And then I got attacked by a pit bull, and my entire plans for, I guess, my entire income stream, or whatever you want to call it, that was over in a day. And that sent me back to traveling. So anyways, did some more months of traveling and had the idea to get an RV. So I bought an RV and spent seasons down in Florida, up in New England, drove it to Colorado. I would just get out of Charleston when the weather wasn't good here. And yeah, so I was pretty much all over the place. Moved back to Charleston again, and then ended up, after Colorado, I ended up getting certified to work on private jets. And then that got cut short because then I was asked to be on this reality show, Below Deck. And that was the grand finale of my 10-year adventure. And then I finally moved back to Charleston.
So you stuck to the plan.
Yeah. The beginning of the plan that just winded its way into this entire wonderful experience. All the ups and downs. I certainly didn't do it gracefully. I made every mistake every step of the way, but I also had the most amazing experiences, met the most amazing people, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And it is, I guess, I don't know if ironic is the word, but my dad passed away, and that was obviously a very traumatic and painful experience, but I guess in the end, it also opened up my life to a lot of different and new experiences.
You mentioned how the thrill seeking became soul seeking.
Yes. So in the beginning of my adventure, 21-year-old me, I was not thinking very deep. I was just more like thrill seeking adventure with no higher aspirations. I basically based most of my decision making off of places that could offer the most adventure, the best parties, and the best looking boys.
Do you think in any way you were running from feeling the loss of your father with all the travel?
I would say that yes, a part of me was definitely just trying to either numb the pain or distract myself from the true feelings and just things I hadn't really dealt with, because throughout the whole process of him being sick and then passing away, I mean, I was young when it all started. So when you're 14, 15 years old, you definitely do not have, I mean, we haven't fully developed emotionally, I think, until we're 25 or something. And not that there's any right way to deal with that kind of thing, but my process was just pushing it away and pretending like everything was okay. And so I loved the distraction and the excitement of new things. And I would love that no matter what. I don't think any of that is just because I was trying to run away from, I guess, the past or the pain.
Yeah, and you can be happy and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
Which I'm realizing, like, you have to learn how to do that the older we get because life is hard.
Yeah. And growing up, me and my friends grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and we like to party. We like to do hood rat stuff with my friends. And maybe a part of me was trying to numb the pain, but I think the bigger part of me just loves to party. And I also I love traveling. I love new places. I love the excitement, new people, all that. So that would have been a big part of my life either way. But I do think that part of me was I was either running from the pain, but I also think I was like misplaced. I felt like after he died, because I grew up living with him, and then it was all of a sudden like I didn't really have a home anymore. And I'd been living in Charleston. I was kind of over that. So, like I said, I wanted to find the perfect post-up spot and
a home.
Yeah. Let's see, what's the rest of the question?
How the thrill seeking became soul seeking.
Yeah. Okay. Everywhere I went, it was almost like I was reinventing myself. I went, from the sunny beaches of South Carolina to the snowy mountains of Breckenridge and became a snowboard bum or whatever you want to call it. And then I moved down to the big city, Argentina, third world country, Spanish speaking. And I was a little city slicker, little South Kakalaki-ian in the cities. And basically, I wasn't setting out for any kind of like personal growth or that kind of thing, but it just started to happen and I actually became aware of it. And I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. I'm actually learning a lot, growing a lot. I'm actually pretty good at this whole figure it out on my own thing. And it just started to build confidence. And then I feel like I would come back home and it was just like nothing had changed back home, but I was changed. And so that was when I began to realize like, okay, I think that I'm actually becoming or growing as a person, and my perspective was changing, and I was becoming much more adept to dealing with life and to dealing with my own emotions. And as I said, I was definitely in a lot of pain when I left Charleston after my dad died. And I was slowly able to kind of shed some of those layers bit by bit. And it was, so yeah, the thrill seeking became soul seeking. And then I went down an entire wormhole.
Could you talk more about how you did that and the way you were experiencing the pain?
Yes. So I was just a whole whirlwind of emotions. I think when anybody loses a loved one, obviously there's just naturally just a lot of, pain and sorrow and also guilt, because you feel like you could have been there more, you should have spent more time with him, and just they suffered a lot. And so that's kind of pain that I think everybody experiences. But I had a little extra layer on top of that because I managed to get myself into a nice big pickle right before he died. And actually it was a big pickle. And I had been living in Charleston, and basically I got caught with a big old bag of weed, which resulted in me getting arrested, suspended from school, evicted from my house, and banished to Colombia for a semester in my state of disgrace. And that was 2 months before my dad died. So in a very short period of time, my whole world turned upside down. But the last memories I have of my dad is like him bailing me out of jail and him having to drive to Charleston and beg the dean to not expel me from college, and meetings with lawyers. And so I just had this whole extra layer of guilt that was really eating away at me. And that was just kind of like a constant, relentless cloud that I just couldn't escape for a long time. But I did, I think the first big, call it pivotal moment that I think is the biggest part of my whole healing process, or at least triggered it, happened at a music festival. And it was probably, I think it was about 3 months after he passed away. So I didn't have to suffer for too long in this state. But I was taken out of the environment I had been in, which was in Colombia, in the house where my dad died, in my state of disgrace, because I should have been in Charleston. And it was just a constant reminder of, what a failure I was, what a bad daughter I was, how much my life sucked, blah, blah, blah. That was the chatter going on in my head. And I did manage to finagle my way into going to a music festival because, as I said, no one's in charge of me except me now. If my dad had been around, I don't think I would have been allowed to go. But I was at a music festival and had on some of my favorite medicines, music and mushrooms. And I just had the most amazing day. And I was sitting there with our friend Genevieve and a few other homies, and we were laughing so hard we were crying. I was watching children play, and there's the Bob Marley song, everything's gonna be all right. And I literally had tears of laughter streaming down my face. And when they said that line, everything's gonna be all right, I just had this like revelation. And I realized for the first time I was crying from happiness, because I had it was the first time in a long time that I had gone probably hours without thinking all those negative thoughts. I was pulled away from my ego chatter, and I really liked it. I was like, I want to stay in this place. And then I realized, oh wait, I can stay in this place. Like, I don't have to go back to that. And I realized that I had complete control over my thoughts. My mind was just in this habit of going there. Anytime my mind was free to wander, it just went to this dark place. But at this music festival on my wonderful medicine, I escaped it in that dark place. And I just had this revelation that I didn't have to be that it was self-imposed, that I was just really.
And you can also, you can mourn the loss of someone while still living your life. But it's hard. So many of us struggle with letting ourselves do that. Giving yourself permission to be happy can take decades sometimes.
Yeah. Yes. And what's the word? What's the word when you not beat yourself up, but I was
self-flagellating?
Yeah, but I'll putting myself through pain. Anyways.
Just punishing yourself.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, that makes sense because you felt guilt. And guilt and shame are the hardest emotions to feel.
Yes, yeah. So even though I couldn't control anything that had happened and any like the situation that I was in, I did have control of my reaction to it and the way I was thinking and how I wanted to get out of it. So having such a good time and being so happy, and so many hours go by without even thinking about my current situation, about the fact that my dad died and all the other things that happened. It was very uplifting, and I realized I really prefer to be happy than to be sad. And then I realized that I actually had the power to make that choice myself, because as much as I can't control what happened in the past, I can't control the situation that I'm in, I could at least control my thoughts and try to keep them positive rather than thinking negative. And I could be constructive rather than just dwelling in the past and dwelling on my sorrows. And I made a mental decision, or whatever you want to call it, to anytime I started to beat myself up, I was going to change my thoughts and just figure out what I can do to improve my situation and just do what I had to do to get back to Charleston and back to the life that I wanted to live, the life that I used to live. And it really made a huge difference, because of just this one like flip of a switch and the wave of a magic wand. And suddenly, of course, I still was dealing with the pain and the sorrow of losing my dad, but I was able to rechannel my emotions and my thoughts of the guilt that I was feeling and turn that into positive actions to move forward.
The wave of the magic cap.
Yes.
So you made that decision, or you had that insight while you were there at the festival, or was it later as you were processing?
Well, it was there at the festival. I was sitting there and I was like, you know what? You've been beating yourself up over this. And really it was the guilt that was really eating away at me. And just the fact, as I mentioned, that I was banished to Colombia. So I was just living this complete different life. So basically in that moment, I made the decision to quit thinking of the past and think towards the future, quit thinking negatively and try to think positively and constructively. And then definitely I think on the way home is when I really started to like go through a list of things that I could do to actually implement all that. And the first one was just work as much as possible, save up as much money as possible so that I could move back to Charleston, because that was the first step, I think, in me returning back to normal life and not having that constant reminder. I mean, I was not trying to be in Colombia. Loved growing up there, not trying to live there. And I loved Charleston, and I wanted to be back with all the friends that I had been with throughout college, and I wanted to be back in school. So, step 1, get back to Charleston. Step 2, stop beating yourself up. And just that little moment really had a huge impact on me. And it just kind of unlocked this superpower that I didn't know that I had, because once you realize that you are in control of your thoughts and that you can make a decision if you want to react negatively or positively, I mean, that's a power that you can unleash for the rest of your life.
You can do anything.
Yeah.
And women especially, we hold ourselves back from that.
Yeah.
You know, we're not usually brought up to celebrate and explore that. Which brings me to another question. I know, especially in the South, it can be hard to buck expectations and follow your own path. There's so much pressure on women to conform. For example, you were a debutante, but on your own terms. Where do you think this inner resolve comes from? Have you done things to cultivate that? Is it just your nature?
Well, first off, although I went to some debutante balls, I would not consider me a debutante. I'm more of a debutante.
You had to do the gloves and
oh yeah, it was a couple hours.
Debutante.
Oh, I rolled up there blasting Lil Wayne and drinking whiskey. So I don't know if I quite fit that mold, but I was a debutante nonetheless. But I like to call myself a debutante. But yeah, I mean, obviously that is a very traditional, I guess, Southern lifestyle or way of thinking is just, I don't know. I don't even know what you would consider that.
Well, it's for people who are not from here, it's fascinating because it's such an old way of life, but it can be incredibly restrictive.
Yes. So the whole point of the debutante ball is to introduce your daughter coming of age into society so that she finds a nice, successful husband or a reputable husband or whatever. I don't know. It is very old-fashioned, and honestly, the way I was brought up living, with my dad, and we were just rambunctious little hellions running around barefoot and wreaking havoc on the neighborhood. We were not so traditional to begin with. So I don't think that I was ever really reared in the idea that I was going to be the traditional Southern belle, having tea parties with gloves on, age 22, married with kids.
So where do you think this incredible inner strength that you have comes from? Because it's incredibly hard to continue to follow your own path and make up your own way. The pull of a traditional life, it's easier. There's grooves that are already pre-cut, I know the mushroom journey gave you insight and permission to do what you knew you needed to do. But once you had that knowledge to continue to do it, to follow that path, as other friends decided to move home and stop traveling and all this, where did your strength to follow your way come from?
Well, I would say that I don't know if it was as much strength as I was just stoked. Like, I was loving what I was doing, and the idea of adulting was just horrifying to me. And so I was just, whatever I could do to stave off the premature adulting, which I think is a huge, huge epidemic in the world. I was in no rush to return home and live that life. And everywhere I went was just always an amazing experience. And it just kind of brought me to the next step. And I mean, the strength, I think you need strength for adulting. You don't need strength to be, hold on, let me start there.
I don't know. I think it does require strength, but to feed it with joy works too. So
it was not hard to stay out, on my thrill-seeking, soul-seeking journey when the other option is to return home and start adulting, which to me was terrifying and the last thing I wanted to do. So I was pretty much at a certain point, like you mentioned, a lot of friends did start returning home and did return to, quote, normal life. And at that point, I was like, I'm on a mission to avoid premature adulting for as long as possible, because at some point it's going to happen, and then there's no coming back. But I'm going to keep on doing my thing for as long as possible because this is pretty dope.
Living your best life.
Yeah. And just, every kind of adventure brought me to a new one, and it was just one thing after another. And there was really no, like I said, there was no plan. I just kind of went with the flow, and the flow was just awesome. I guess the one difficult part was to keep on keeping on and moving on to like the next thing, because it was basically 10 years. I feel like I led like 10 different lives, and everywhere I went, it was almost reinventing myself every time. But it was also, I had to say goodbye to my previous life, which was always, you build up this life that's awesome, and you make these friends, and you live in this awesome place. And then it's like you pack up and you start all over. And so it's hard to leave behind something that you love. And that does kind of take the strength, but then it's like you gain a whole new life of spectacularness. And every place that I've left, then I've been to a new place, and I can't imagine life without that experience and without those friends, the new friends. And so just knowing what you'll gain from what you're leaving behind can give you strength, and just the excitement of all the things.
Our friend Jamie has a great quote. I can't remember where it's from, but it was something to the effect of, now you will never be truly at home anywhere, for your heart is many places. Like, you leave yourself, a little bit of yourself, all these places that you love, but you also do take aspects of it along with you. I mean, it's incredibly healing to travel in that sense, because you find more and more deeply who you are, who you might not have become if you hadn't had those encounters in that time.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like you go to unfamiliar places with unfamiliar faces, and suddenly you find little bits of yourself that were long lost or little bits that you needed. And I mean, for example, when I lived in Argentina, that was when I was, 23 or something, 23, 24. And it was the first time I'd ever lived in a big city. And, it's a third world country. So everything there it's not as sparkly as it is in America. And nothing works. That's my little slang term there, nunca funca, which means nothing works in Spanish, and nothing works there. Everything breaks. Everything's janky. You can get locked into your own house. It's just insane. I literally had to call my friend, missed a flight because of it. And you really, we take for granted so much here in America, how lucky we are and how well we have it, and all of the luxuries that we just consider normal life. I mean, they are not normal, like dishwashers and clothes washing machines and that kind of thing. That is, people in the world don't have that kind of thing. And so when you go to a place like that, you just, all of a sudden, instead of, you just gain this appreciation, and it just kind of changes your whole perspective on everything. So you come home and you're pissed off because your car has a flat tire, when really it's like, wow, I'm so lucky to have a car. And when I went there, I think I thought of myself kind of as a victim, because I had lost my dad, and I was still, I didn't know many other people who's had lost a parent at that age. And so I was like poor me, but then I went there and I realized that kind of just the whole culture there is that the dad's not necessarily a huge part of the kid's life. A lot of times the dad won't even live with the family, and the mom does all the quote women jobs, and she raises the family, and they live in these tiny apartments, the whole family, and the dad's just doing his thing all over town. And so I realized that, or you're not promised anything. The fact that I even had my dad in my life for so long and got to spend so much time with them, even for just 20 years, is such a gift, because some people, they don't even know their dad, or maybe their dad's not a big part of their life, or maybe, I don't know, their dad, yeah, like I said, they don't even know who he is. And so it just kind of changed me from feeling like I was some kind of victim and that something was taken from me, and made me realize that, no, I had this gift and that I should appreciate it rather than look back on it or think of it as as a, a bad thing. I don't know if that answered the question. What was the question?
It does.
Hello, travelers. Just a quick pause from our theater's sponsor, me, as we turn towards winter, and 'tis especially the season. Do you love a bit of the Gothic? Visit me at eveningskingdom.com and help support this show by buying news stories available via Kindle and also Audible. This includes The Never Seas, in which the eerie, obsessive attraction between a restless young woman and a dangerous traveler tips into madness and revenge. Gothic atmosphere, check. A wee bit erotic, check, check. If you love epic fantasy, I'm recording books 1 and 2 of Evening's Kingdom for free, and those episodes are available via eveningskingdom.com. As requested, I'm also working on a tangible copy, a lovely paperback you can hold in your hands and enjoy. The story is pretty epic and sweeping, so I can understand you may want to follow along, be able to flip back and reread the good bits, etc. Early readers also receive a free digital copy of Evening's Kingdom in exchange for their honest review when I officially release the book, which I will mail you, so you have a lovely copy all your own. If that strikes you, visit eveningskingdom.com and click subscribe/get book 1 for free. Now, back to our show.
All in all, you traveled the world for over a decade. How did your mindset evolve through all those years traveling?
Well, yeah, it definitely took a lot of mindset shifts. I think that's just kind of, I would say I definitely had lots of evolutionary changes in the mind. As your circumstances change, you have to change the way you think and adapt to your new situation.
And you were growing up on the road, raising yourself, really.
Yeah.
Actually, the world was raising you.
Yeah, something like that. Mindset shifts, they're just like pivotal moments. They're these amazing little revelations that just help you either heal or grow or just become at peace with the way things are. And I think that, the hardest thing for me to get used to in the early years was creating my own beliefs about what a successful person or what a successful life looks like. Because growing up in South Carolina or even in America, in the little whatever bubble that you grow up in, you're told what's good and what's bad, kind of, through just social norms and just pop culture and just what you experience and what is the typical American dream, where after school, you get a nice successful job and you go work a 9 to 5 and you save up for retirement and you get married and have kids, and then you retire and you go, join the tennis club or something and live a happy life forever and ever. And that was how our parents and our grandparents grew up, and that's just kind of what was expected. But when I started to travel and I met all these people who had such different lifestyles and even different upbringings that were nothing like that, and just knowing that way of thinking was kind of actually outdated and no longer even valid, like Social Security and retirement, those are things that aren't really working out these days. And just the thought that you should spend the prime of your life working a 9 to 5 behind a desk while you could be out in the world exploring outdoors. I mean, that's when you're the strongest. I mean, when you retire, you're going to go climb mountains and jump off cliffs and go skydiving. Those are things you should do when you're younger.
Yeah.
So,
and then for anyone who is locked to a 9 to 5 listening to this, yearning to change that, Baker is going to talk about some alternative forms of income later in this show. So don't despair.
Yes, we have solutions. We have solutions. But yeah, so at one point I This is when I was living in Argentina as well. So it had been a few years into my travels, and I had this little funk for a little bit, and I was just feeling as though I wasn't contributing to society because although I was teaching English, I wasn't earning a whole lot of money, and I was doing it very part-time. I was just thinking...
those hot dudes.
All those porteños. I just kind of started to feel like, what am I doing? I'm not contributing to society. I'm not like really earning a lot of money. But then I thought a little bit harder, and I realized actually I've learned a whole nother language. I'm learning how to navigate through a huge city, a Spanish-speaking third world country. I have made these amazing friends. And what do I value more, like dollars in the bank or these experiences and these connections and relationships that you just can't put a value on? And I realized that is way more important to me. And the knowledge and the wisdom and like the street smarts that I was gaining, I mean, it's, what's the word? Invaluable?
Yeah.
Is that the word? But yeah, so I had to shake off what I had been instilled in me, that to be a successful person, to have a successful life meant doing that typical 9-to-5 thing. And I realized that to me, success is the relationships that I made and the experiences that I had and the memories that just you can't put a dollar sign on, and just let myself be free to do that and not beat myself up that I wasn't being that American dream kind of girl.
Yeah. You have to choose the regrets that you can't live with, for sure.
I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
With that comes defining what it is that to you would make you happy. And it might not fit into this, you called it something.
Conventional American dream?
Yeah. There's so many dreams.
Yeah. And what I find value in might be totally different to somebody else, but just
that's
basically
okay.
you have to create your own values and create your own lifestyle based on what you want out of it. And that might be very different from what you've been told or just what has been instilled in you your whole life. And that's fine, but you got to get away from that to know how you want to think. Because if you're stuck with in that same bubble your whole life, then you're not going to think outside the bubble.
So we all tend to be much more open to new experiences when we're traveling. And you like to say travel is a frame of mind. Is this still something you try to consciously cultivate every day, staying open to new experiences now that you're back in Charleston for a little while?
Yeah. I'd like to think that more it's a mindset that I've adopted, that it's ingrained in my brain. I don't think I'm ever just going to one day wake up and be like, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing forever from now on. And if I ever get an opportunity to go do something new and do something cool and fun, I'll jump on it as long as I can. Now that I'm, adulting part-time, I don't always have the freedom to just do what I want to do whenever I want to do it. Or, I have obligations, I have responsibilities. So if I am given the opportunity and if I can, then I will. And if you can, you should.
So I want to switch gears because I know a lot of people will really appreciate what you have to say on this. There is no better way to fund an unorthodox lifestyle than with unorthodox sources of income. So first of all, I have to say you're not materialistic. I think when I first met you, you were mostly wearing your famous Pfizer as seen on YouTube, which you made from cut-up denim jeans and fabric scraps, lots of glitter. So you keep your day-to-day costs very low. But another thing I've always admired about you is that your sources of income always seem to be sources of adventure and joy as well. Tell us about some of the revenue streams that you found helpful.
Yes. Money, money, money makes the world go round. Not because it's money, but because it can fund your adventures. So if you want to go on adventures, having an adventure job helps. Let's see. I'll just kind of go through what I have done, and then I'll tell you like my faves. So in the beginning, I mean, when I lived in Colorado and when I lived in Tahoe, I pretty much just food and bev. But when I lived in Argentina, I taught English, and I also worked for a pub crawl company, which was a lot of fun. I mean, you can always even just do food and bev if you move somewhere where you speak the language. Let's see. Well, then I worked on a yacht for like a year and a half. I worked on private jets as a cabin attendant. I was on a reality show, Below Deck. And then more recently, I have a house that I Airbnb full time. And I also have an RV that I rent out from time to time. And then my latest and greatest is my local dance company called Diva Dance Parties, Charleston. And it's part of a franchise of a bigger company, Diva Dance Company, which is awesome. And so those are pretty much what my sources of income have been in the past 15 years. And I would say maybe the best ones, or like my favorite, definitely working on a yacht is pretty amazing. When you work on the yacht, you live on the yacht and you go where the yacht goes, and yachts don't go to boring places. And you're mainly just making sure that the richest people in the world have a fun time when they're on vacation, and that their toys work and that it stays looking brand new. So as long as you can handle all that, and you also have to be willing to set aside a year of your life to really get the full experience. But you can earn a lot of money. You have no expenses. And it is, I think, the most effective way to prevent premature adulting of all these other jobs. Because if you're having to deal with, parent pressure, and they're like, after school, they're like, want you to get a job. They're not too stoked about some of these other jobs, or just, moving somewhere and bartending, but everyone's very intrigued in the yachting world, and they might be a little more open to you doing that than, going and being a ski bum or teaching English for like $5 an hour.
And you wrote a book about it.
Yes. The Yacht Job Handbook. The digital version is the best. We'll mention the links for that.
Yeah, I'll have show notes.
Yes, bakermanning.com. You can find a lot of this information.
Yeah, but I strongly recommend the book. And she points out, like, you are going to save a ton of money, principally because you're not spending your money at all. So you think of a whole year's worth of income, the kind of money you'd be paid working on a private yacht, saving that entire amount for however long you do it. I mean,
yeah. And all of your living expenses and needs are taken care of. So you have all this mind space to think higher thoughts. You're not wondering, like, how am I going to feed myself? You're like, what do I really want to be in the world? As you polish metal for 3 hours in the beautiful Bahama setting, or wherever your yacht is. It's definitely going to be somewhere nice. So yeah, that one is definitely something to look into. The working on private jets is really sweet, a lot harder to get into. Both of them require like a 5-day training course. The Yacht Job, SCCW, that one's about between $1,000 and maybe $1,200 now. But the jet training is closer to like $5,000.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. But the Yacht Job is kind of a good shoe-in for working on jets. So that's a good order if you want to do both.
See if you like the service industry.
Yes.
The company that you used for the jets, that was called FlexJet?
That's who I worked for. I will get back to you on the name of the school that I went to for the training. I forget what it was called, but it was in Savannah. They have them all over the country. So we'll put that in the show notes. Okay, so Airbnb is my bread and butter, and I know you know about that, but Airbnb has been life-changing. My brother and I, we bought a house here in Charleston back in 2014. We really lucked out because it was before, all the prices shot up and all that. So we lived in it for several years, but then in 2017, we both moved out and started Airbnb it full time. And that has just been, I don't even know. I mean, it's changed my whole life. Like, I don't know what I would do without that Airbnb money. And you can set it up to where it's pretty much all automated. Like obviously there's little things you have to do from time to time and repairs that need to be made and just the typical admin stuff. But I have it to where people can book and then they just get these automated messages. We've got a keyless entry. So we'll send them the access code before their arrival date. So there's no check-in. I don't have to deal with check-ins and any of that kind of stuff. We have all the checkout instructions for them. The cleaners have the calendar, so they just show up and clean. So it's very automated. And so you can Airbnb a bedroom in your house, or you can Airbnb the whole house if you go out of town for a weekend. You don't have to necessarily own the house, although check out your local laws. But it's just an amazing source of income. So that is an option. If you wanted to go travel for a month, you could rent out your place and that could pay for your whole trip. And otherwise the place is going to sit there empty and you're going to have to pay for it. So you might as well.
And it shifts your mindset in this really interesting way, away from, possessing and controlling to more just like, do you value experiences or things? So like what we're doing, we're just renting out one room in our house, but when we're both gone, we're going to rent out the whole house, which is a little hard for me because I love my things. I like my things in their specific place. I worry about people. This is silly, but I'll be honest. Like I worry about people taking my books. Nobody's going to take my books. That's the last thing. But, it's more important to get out and have experiences and live life and really be present. And with Airbnb and these unorthodox things, it does set you free and helps keep your perspective fresh. Because like you're renting a place when you own a house. Yeah. Because you can make more money by Airbnb-ing the whole house. Baker did encourage me to continue to live in the school bus and rent out our whole house, but I wasn't strong enough.
Well, I mean, yeah, like you said, I have an RV sitting vacant in front of my house, but I prefer my house as well. So I'll pay money to rent a place at Folly Beach, which is pretty awesome.
The edge of America.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but I get it because I've lived that bus life, and it is very refreshing to finally be back in your own space. Uh-huh. And with a laundry machine. And everything is temporary. Like the other thing too, and when what Airbnb makes possible is you can spend seasons living all over the world, and you can rent an Airbnb for months at a time. Like you're no longer stuck in one place. You got options, and you guys can live here for however long, and then maybe y'all might want to go on another little bus hiatus or bus adventure for a few months, and then you can. So
that's the plan. We were gone, I think it was a year and a half. And some of that was COVID time, so everything was different. And we've had to come back because our day jobs, we don't have to be there on site all the time, but there are periods when we do, and it's just easier to be in the area. But our plan was kind of like yours, where we were traveling around looking for the perfect place and thinking, okay, we're going to do a month here and 3 months here and all this, which we did. And it was amazing. But it's funny how the whole time we were taking the long road back home, which is here. Yeah. Which is what you've done too.
Yeah. No, and that is like, it was funny to me because when I left Charleston after I was finished with school, that was what I told everybody. I was like, I'm going to find the perfect post-up spot. And Charleston was not on the list. But Charleston was always my headquarters. It was always, I would come back here, kind of fall back or regroup before off to the next place. And every time I came home, I just it just started to grow on me. And eventually, like I said, it's hard to leave a place where you've been living because you just, grow so close to the people and everything about it. But it was way less hard to leave knowing that I was going to come home to Charleston. And I would be just as excited, to come back here as I was to start some new adventures. So eventually I was like, every place I went, it had each one had its own special quality that I loved. But when I really put it into perspective, I mean, Charleston, like nothing compared to here. It's a beautiful place. Has friends and family. We've got the beaches, we've got the food, we have all those things. And it became very obvious to me that Charleston was home because it had just everything that I loved and all the people that I loved.
The people are amazing here. The pace of life, the way everyone slows down and prioritizes just being together is really singular. I mean, like, I went to the Food Lion, which is our local grocery store, the other day.
Shitty kitty.
They
just stepped their game up a little bit.
It's also called that. But every time you're there and you're in line in the grocery store, you end up in conversation with the checkout cashier and the people in the line. They want to know what you're making with what you have. Like, oh, what you gonna do? Oh, can I come over? And like, I mean, every time, whenever I have somebody visiting, they're always like, this is crazy.
I know.
I didn't know there was anyone in America that still have. It's beautiful. It's like, oh yeah, that's the real life, not my inbox.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember when I came back, especially from Argentina, it's a big city, but they also, they had a lot of recent political issues that I think caused people to kind of stay a little more, they're a little more closed off or something like that. I don't know. Eye contact and like, conversation like that isn't something that you'll see.
It's often. A luxury. It's a major luxury to feel safe and open to people that you don't know.
Yeah. And, but yeah, and then I remember coming back to Charleston and just any person that you make eye contact with, smile at you. Some will even wave. Even people passing you in the car will wave at you as you walk down the street. Like, it's hilarious. And yeah, just go to the grocery store and I'm just standing there looking for soup and some lady walks up and we're just chatting about soup. I'm just like, this is hilarious and awesome. Everyone's so like smiley and friendly and I like that.
I think it's his son. For a long time, too, people didn't honk when you were, like, taking a while to go at a green light. Things like that. Although I think that is starting to change.
We have enough Northerners living down here now that you get some honks.
Yeah, you can tell. They honk. Do you have any tips for staying healthy while traveling? Or, better yet, feeling and looking fabulous, as seen in your famous Visor Ganizer video on YouTube?
I have plenty of tips. I can't say that I am that great at following my own advice, but I do know there are ways. As far as staying healthy while traveling, that I struggle with, but the least that you can do is try to get a lot of physical activities, while, plan fun things like go on a hike or even walk. I love biking. I think if you're exploring a new city, biking is the best way to do it because you can cover so much ground, but walking is great too. Living here in Charleston, it's extremely hot. So I'm like, I don't walk. That's like not my thing, but
you rollerblade.
Yes. I love rollerblading. Rollerblading is so fun. But yeah, typically, I mean, my like main reasons for travel is either adventure or party. So if I'm going on an adventure, hopefully I'm walking up a mountain or going surfing or doing something like that. And if I'm partying, I'm probably going to a music festival, and that dancing really adds up. Mm-hmm. Last time I was in Mexico, I danced 20 miles in 9 hours at a jungle party. But yeah, and if you're not doing adventure, and you're not going to a music festival, just any kind of dancing, I highly recommend. When you get a chance, dance. If you're going out to dinner and there's some live music somewhere. But besides that, let's see. So the food obviously is a big thing. So just try to eat nice, real foods. And I think also if you're going to stay in a place for a while, and try to stay in a place that has a kitchen or at least a fridge. And if you can buy your own healthy snacks, that can help, because if you don't have any food on deck and then all of a sudden you're hungry, you're just going to immediately have go out to eat at a restaurant, and that might not be the healthiest. But if you can snack your way through the day and then have one big meal, that's better. But let's see. Besides that, I I pretty much have a hard time staying healthy while traveling because, like I said, I like to party, and traveling typically is a lot of partying for me. So I go on benders and then I go on menders. So knowing that, you know, a 5-day trip is going to be a 5-day bender, I tried to do a 5-day mender on the tail end and on the front end of that bender. So I try to be really healthy before I leave. And then when I get back, I'll be healthy again.
Yeah.
So at home, you know, work out really well, eat well, don't drink, and then begins the bender. And then I'll have the grand finale, bender ender, which will be my last drink of the trip. And then I get home and then I whip myself back into shape. So may not be the most conventional advice, but it is something. As far as feeling and looking fabulous, well, you know, that's all mental. You know, you want to be comfortable, but if you've got some steezy outfits you want to wear, that helps. And
what's steezy?
Steezy. Well, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder, but you know, I like to dress to express. So, for example, my visor organizers, I like to add fun little pockets and sparkles and anything. Like my favorite color is blue, so I got a lot of blue things going on. So whatever it is that whatever makes you feel good, rock it. And even if it's a little outlandish, who cares? Because
yeah, you have a packing list download on your website, right?
Oh yeah, I have all types of packing lists. Bakerman.com. So we'll add that to the show notes as well. I have a lot of outfits that are great for traveling that are very versatile and multi-way. So there's this one brand I highly recommend. It's called Angel Rocks, Angelrox. And they have these amazing multi-way clothing. So there's this long skirt. It's tight fitting on the top, flowy on the bottom. And it can be a skirt. It can be a dress. It can be a shirt. It can be so many things, and it looks so cute, made out of bamboo. And they've got these wraps that also you can wear them 10 different ways. And so I always bring like I pretty much bought like their entire clothing line in multiple colors. So I always pack those with me when I'm traveling. So you've always got options. And then I also like to bring my fun gear. But another just, I guess, tip as far as packing goes is choose a color scheme. So I usually wear like black bottoms, so black shorts, black skirts, that kind of thing. And then my shirts can be more colorful or have patterns. But if you bring bottoms and tops that are both full of patterns, then they won't match as much. So if you're going on a long trip, you know, you're going to need as many different outfits, and so the more they can match, the better it is. So I tend to do like a one color bottoms and then more colorful tops, and then accessories are amazing. So I like to bring sarongs. Sarongs are so useful, they're so right. And I like to bring things like there's like hand warmers, arm warmers, hats, those kind of things that are crucial if you have the weather isn't consistent. And electronic hand warmers are amazing. This has nothing to do with fashion, but they are life-changing. $30 on Amazon, you can recharge them. And let's see, as far as what are we at here? Looking fabulous. Well, as a Southern belle, I like to maintain some elegance in the elements. So I pretty much, I call myself a gypsy diva. And the diva in me, she does not pack lightly. I bring lots of things that help with dealing with extreme environments. So if I'm at the beach, I've got like my face wipes, makeup remover, little mirror. I'll bring like leave-in hair conditioner so I can comb out my hair when it gets all tangly in the ocean. Little things like that. If you know you're going to be doing something outdoors and you still want to look good, then think of what's going to make you look bad and then how you're going to solve that. It's all on my packing checklist at bakermanning.com.
You are an incredibly wonderful, supportive friend. And friendship is an art, truly. And you mean so many things to so many people and just seem to balance this massive international friend group with depth, even though, it's this huge number of people. I don't even know how many people you're balancing. How do you do it?
Well, the biggest thing for staying in touch, social media is amazing. And social media really has Facebook, more specifically, has changed my life because I've never hesitated to go on there and post and ask people to connect me with people. So if I'm moving somewhere new, when I moved to Argentina, when I moved to Colorado, when I started working on a yacht, I just hopped on the good old Facebook and I wrote a post like, hey, everybody, I'm moving to this place. I'm going to need somewhere to live. I'm going to need some friends. If you have any intel, hook a sister up. And immediately people just start responding to me and they connect me with people, and those people become my best friends, my roommates. I've found places to live. In minutes. It's insane. And so
I've seen you do that.
Yeah. It's amazing. And so that has been a huge, tool or resource or whatever you want to call it for moving to a new place and getting connected, and then staying connected as well, because, you go somewhere and you meet these people and they become like your best friend, like your roommates. Like, we speak every day, we do everything together, and then you move and you're not speaking every day, but, from time to time you can share stuff on social, you can comment on each other's things, and that kind of keeps it going. And then, eventually, hopefully your paths will cross. Paths will cross. There we go. Your paths will cross. No.
I think you got it the first time, but I've had some wine too.
Okay. Eventually, your paths will cross again, or you may go back to that place, and then you can reconnect. And reconnecting with an old friend that you haven't seen in so long, and being able to see them in person and all that is just such a wonderful experience and feeling and all that. And another tip I have for that purpose is keywords when you save your contacts. So because I lived in so many places, I always give everyone that when I save them in my phone, I give them a keyword or like a nickname. So my phone is Paula Chuck. So anyone in Charleston, because Charleston is Chuck Town, I'll put in their name. And you might have 4 keywords, but I'll put in your name plus Chuck, and then however I met you or however I know you. So if I met you on Folly, it would be like Paula Folly Chuck. Or if I met you in Denver, it'd be like Paula Den. And I have, so if it's in Breck, just Breck. So, or if I met you at like a music festival, I'll put your name plus that festival. And so if I'm going back to Denver, or if I'm going to Breckenridge, you open up your messages, you type the word Breck, and all of your friends from Breck show up. And you can just start texting people like, yo, I'm coming to town next week. Let's kick it. And easiest thing is try to get everybody to come to you. So be like, first night, dinner here, meet me there.
Spoken like a Southern belle.
So yeah, social media is huge. And then, the keyword thing is huge too, because half the time I might not even remember your first name or all the people that I know in this place, but you get this little drop down menu of all your Denver friends and your messages tab. So,
and then the messages rekindle the memories, hopefully.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. So, that's huge for sure. And, but yeah, just try to, reach out to people from time to time or comment on their stuff too. That helps just to kind of keep the conversation going.
I like the keyword thing. I'm really good at remembering people's stories, but I'm not so good at remembering their names.
Oh yeah, and I probably have like 20 Johns in my phone.
Oh yeah,
they all have keywords, but so it's like, how else would you tell them apart?
So I've noticed you always seem to have at least 2 of everything: 2 scrunchies, 2 water bottles. Yeah, right now she's snapping 2 scrunchies, 3 hand warmers. Do you pack for the day specifically to be able to share with people that you meet?
Well, as a gypsy diva who always comes prepared to be as comfortable as possible in the elements, my kind of way of thinking is if I'm going to bring a bag, I might as well fill it up. So however much space I have, I'm gonna fill it up. So if it's cold outside and I know people are gonna need hand warmers, and I'm gonna want like my own hand warmer and then another one to let people use, then yeah, I tend to bring, I mean, like you said, I'm not a materialistic person, but I do like things that help maximize the spectacularness and comfort of whatever I'm doing, whether that be a Bluetooth speaker or a hand warmer or a fan, like things like that, like a bottle of champagne, like those are things that I will put in the extra effort to bring and lug them around knowing that they're going to make things better. And so, but there's, for one thing, I mean, I hate being cold. I despise it. So yeah, I'm going to do whatever it takes to like not be cold in the cold. So I will bring multiple hand warmers, because for one, like I said, I want my own and I know my friends are going to need one and mine might die. And that's the gypsy diva in me.
I love this line from your writings. You're talking about music festival survival. And you write, I can be very absent-minded and have learned that having my belongings attached to me is extremely useful. Anytime I was responsible for holding onto a key, I attached it to a hairband around my wrist. I love this. I like to get hyper prepared about weird little details so I can just float around and be in flow. Do you have any other tips like that?
Oh, yes. I have many tips. I feel like at this point we need to dive more into gypsy diva and what it represents. So as a, born and bred Southern belle, I definitely, like, to my core, am a diva. I think most girls are divas. I mean, from 5 years old and on, like or however long I can remember, it's like I love like sparkly things. I love bright colors. And like we all want to like look as good as we can. And anyways, yeah, I like being girly, but at the same time, if you're traveling, you're out, like I can rough and tough it out as well. So that's like the gypsy in me. And I've learned that pretty much if you're traveling, you need to have a good balance of the gypsy and the diva, because the diva she's great before traveling to prepare for the traveling. She arms you with all of the things that you need to survive and to.
So she's thinking, what's going to suck and how can I fix it?
She's like, what are all the bad things that can happen and how can I prevent them? And so she's great for the preparations. But then when you are actually in the act of traveling or you're in the midst of some excursion or adventure, divas don't really flourish in that department. So that's when you need to unleash the diva or the gypsy, because gypsies, carefree, they can adapt, they can go with the flow, they can deal with, less desirable environments. And so, but at the same time, my gypsy is, very, she can be a little careless. She can be a little absent-minded. She can lose things and she can kind of, not care about things like your appearance and whatnot. So you need both of them to balance it out. And so, hold on, what was the question? So I've learned that basically to maximize the spectacularness of whatever you're doing, you gotta have a well-balanced gypsy diva. Do the diva for the preparations and the packing, and the gypsy for the act of having fun because of her willingness to deal with everything. And the diva knows that the gypsy loses things, and that for that reason, hold on.
I like this idea of basically splitting your persona up into these individual like daimons or daemons. I don't know what you'd say, how you pronounce that word. But it's also helpful for me as a writer, because that mind. I'm always sort of looking for narrative arcs and imposing them when they're not there, or thinking about how I'm going to behave the night before I have a big writing day and whatever. And you can get it's hard to be present, really. Like, it's deeply enjoyable for me because I'm a Virgo, but it doesn't make me always the best friend or the best wife. And so it could be interesting maybe to experiment with, like, all right, writer is not writing right now. So now I'm, whatever the other aspects of me there are. That's a fun exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I'm like I said, I could write a whole book called Bakes Mistakes. Cause
you should.
Yeah. I will. But I tend to do a lot of dumb things. I'm impulsive. I don't make the best decisions. I don't set myself up for success just naturally. But
you make good decisions and bad decisions.
Yeah,
perfectly bad decisions.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's all worked out. But I have learned. I've learned a lot of, like, the things that I need to prevent. How to protect myself from myself. How to protect myself from my future self, the one that doesn't make good decisions. And so that, I mean, for sure. I mean, it's just in my DNA, I think, to just. I lose things. I forget things. I can be disorganized, and that's actually one thing that has really improved is my organizational skills. But when I used to pack for, like, a music festival, I always overpack. That's the diva. But I just throw everything in a suitcase, and then you can't find anything because you have everything, and it's all in a big ball. So I've learned
sparkly ball.
Yeah, right. and I also know, like, all the things that can go wrong because, like, I've experienced them all. So I know how to prevent those things and all the things that I need to be comfortable, to survive, to thrive. There's the basic necessities that are required, especially if you're doing something, outdoors, some extreme stuff. And so once you kind of learn whatever it is that you struggle with, then you can take the necessary precautions to prevent that, especially when you're out in the wilderness.
Do you have other personas within yourself that you've noticed besides the gypsy and the diva?
The gypsy, I feel like I do. Hold on. Oh, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, basically, I'm a diva at the core, but I'm many types of divas. Like, if I'm driving my RV, I'm an RV diva. If I'm at a festival, I'm a festy diva. I'm pretty much always an AD diva, ADD diva. When I'm working on my website, I'm a techie diva. When I'm dealing with all my gadgets, I'm a gadget diva. So yeah, I have many different spectrums I have a spectrum of diva, and it's very wide.
but enjoying it from a diva lens, then I guess you would celebrate the fun aspects of that. Well, that's cool.
Yes.
So what does a techie diva do?
Techie diva sits at the computer for hours on end and makes blog posts and builds websites, and actually could geek out on some very technical concepts like SEO and website optimization and other stuff that we won't bore you with on this podcast.
You went deep with the SEO. I need to do that. It's all just time. It is fun to drill down into these things. But yeah. There's always something.
Very time consuming.
Mm-hmm. Have any books changed your life?
Oh, yes. Many books have changed my life, but I would say some of the top ones I'd recommend. 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss was amazing. And that is kind of it really opened up my eyes to so many different lifestyle options and so many different forms of income, and just the new way of thinking versus the old way, and just kind of debunking all of the prior ways of life from older generations and how that's just not a thing anymore. And it's just awesome. I think it should be required reading for high schoolers, honestly. So that's definitely look into that if you haven't already. And then Eckhart Tolle was very impactful for me on a spiritual realm. It really kind of helped me to differentiate between myself and my ego, and just really it helps me just my inner mind be at peace and not react to certain situations and realize and not try to I don't know how I'm starting with that one.
Well, I like that. Like, how do you explain the difference between yourself and your ego? Are they the same?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, your ego is that little chatter thing that
chatter thing. I like that.
It's that little thing chattering at you and judging you. And at the time that the book found me, I really needed it. I was just working on this one yacht, and I was just having a really hard time dealing with some of the crew members who were just extremely unhappy and rude all the time. Mm-hmm. And it was just really getting to me. And in this book, he kind of starts to dissect just the whole human, not the anatomy, the human psychology and the difference between yourself.
Human psyche.
Yeah, the human psyche. Yeah, that's it. Yourself and your ego, and how to differentiate between the two, because there is a huge difference. And that your true self is, or your ego may pop up, and any trait that you have or any bad habit that you have or bad thought that you have may pop up in your brain and in your thoughts. But that doesn't mean that defines who you are or what you are. There's a lot more to it. But just being aware of yourself and being aware of how you react to other people, and knowing that sometimes other people may attack you or just cause drama or bad energy towards you, doesn't necessarily mean that they're trying to harm you. It means that they are in a bad place. This is a very long-winded answer, but
I love it. I love it.
It really helped me to kind of deal with those situations where I wanted to be angry at somebody, but realizing that really they're not trying to attack you. They need help.
They're in a bad place.
Yeah, they're in a bad place. And knowing it's not about you, and being able to not react like immediately with anger or being upset, and just try to be calm and react in a way that's going to be constructive and helpful, rather than, just letting them bring you down to their level and being whack.
Yeah, I mean, it's like as Justice says, it helps in marriage to be a little deaf. And I think that's true in all relationships, because people say things that are beneath them, and they maybe don't even really mean to say what they say. They just sort of can't stop themselves. And if you can just hold a higher vibration, sometimes they'll live up to that. And other times not, and that's fine. Yeah. So when you started living by these tenets or applying these things from the book, did you notice a change on the boat?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in me, for sure. I became a little boat Buddha. Because, I mean, it really, when you live and work on a yacht, like, you don't have any choice who you live with. Like, your crew, I mean, it's basically like your family. You live in a tiny living quarters together. You see each other all day, every day. And not everybody is very pleasant. And
you're in bunk beds, right?
Yeah, we're sharing, sharing a room with them and all that. So you can't really escape it. And yeah, it's like I had never been forced to be around like miserable, angry people who were so rude to me. And it was just hard for me, because I was like, in the real world, if someone's rude to you, like, you're like, all right, bye. You walk away and you don't talk to them ever again. Anyway, so I actually listened to the book. Audio books are amazing. And working on a yacht, I started listening to all types of audiobooks and podcasts, and it was a great way to fill all the time of all those mindless tasks. But so it became like almost like a fun game. I was excited to wake up and be like, all right, I'm not going to let anybody piss me off today because I'm in charge of my own, like, not happiness, but mood. I don't know. And so despite their snappiness and their rudeness and this and that, I just tried to stay balanced and just do what they say and smile on my face. And
did you say smile with your face?
Or smile on my face.
I was like, what?
Smile with my face and my third eye.
Yeah, I'm sure you helped them feel better too.
Oh, I don't know, but I don't think it made a difference to them, but
really?
I was way better.
Yeah.
But I mean, but at the same time, I think it helped just the environment and the energy, because before that, I probably maybe snapped back at him, or it also made me, you know, sometimes if somebody reprimands you or something and it's unearned, like they yell at you for something and you don't deserve to be yelled at, you want to talk back and try to explain your side of things.
I really have trouble with that.
Yeah, and I did too. And after, you know, listening to this book, I kind of like dropped the need to explain myself, or, you know, like instead of talking back, I was just like, okay,
yeah,
I don't need to argue with you. I don't need to explain to you that I actually was just told to do this by somebody else, and that's why I'm doing it. I don't need to make this go any further. So anyway, yeah.
Because I guess that's ego, right? To defend yourself.
Yeah. Because you want to, like, if somebody, I don't know, you want to, like, your side to be heard, but really, who cares? Just end it. End the bad vibes. I don't know. So I highly recommend Eckhart Tolle.
I will check that out. I need to. Well, so on that note, do you have any words you live by? I
would say maximize the spectacularness of life is something I've always tried to live by. Get the best of all worlds, and no matter what you're doing, figure out how it can be better.
If people want to sign up for a diva dance with you, buy your book, or just connect, where can they find you?
BakerManning.com. You can find all the things there. My Instagram handle is BakerManning87, and that's also my Facebook is, I have a Facebook page, Baker Manning. So yeah, just Baker Manning. You can find me in some form or fashion.
Thank you so much. You're amazing, and I absolutely love you.
Love you too, baby girl.
This is Paula Schmidt, and thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, leave a review. If you love fantasy, perhaps visit me at eveningskingdom.com and help support the show by devouring more stories from me, which are newly available via Kindle and also Audible. I'm especially pleased with The Never Seas, in which the eerie, obsessive attraction between a restless young woman and a dangerous traveler tips into madness and revenge. I hope you love it. Thanks for listening, and please stay tuned. The rest of the story is just down the road.